So this week we've been talking about color, and everyone's done a different class on color through this whole week. I'm doing this series kind of based on animals. So we're going to spend a lot of time talking about color as it relates to the animal kingdom and why different animals are colored in different ways, because it's a really wide variety, not only of colors, but of like reasons for them to be colored that way. So the more you understand about animals in the real world, it also helps when you're designing your own characters. But we're also going to be talking about ways that designers and creators have like stolen ideas from animals for their own projects and things like that. So that's going to be really exciting. I'm going to give a couple minutes if we have anybody coming in late before we get started. But if you don't already, get some paper and something to color with. I have markers, so like alcohol-based markers that I was doing these little color studies with. And then as I was doing it, I wasn't super happy with like the span of my marker collection. It's not a very big collection. So I also have a huge box of colored pencils here that I'm probably going to be using the colored pencils in class today. We'll see how it goes. But anything you feel like coloring with, I picked the markers just because they're very fast. So today is not about creating like realistic drawings. It's about studying what colors the animals are made up of and seeing how close we can get to describing the animal just with color shapes by itself. Yes, very long-legged child on this one. So my structure on these were kind of all over the place. I was just trying to illustrate some color concepts over here. There we go. Yeah, I'm glad some of you kind of recognize these. Some like the penguin, I think, turned out pretty good because I just did the black. I didn't do the white at all, but you can still tell it's a penguin. And then there's a little blob of a penguin child underneath. Little gray penguin chick. Okay. There we go. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So basically, animals fall into like two general categories. Either animals are colored a certain way because they want to be seen, or they don't want to be seen, right? So we're all probably pretty familiar with the concept of camouflage. Some animals are colored a certain way to blend in with their environment. And then I'm going to share my screen real quick to show you some examples. I have a lot of photos open, so hopefully I get it. Used to tell me what they were titled, and now they're not. There we go. Sorry, it's taking a second, I think, because I have a lot open. All right, so this is a picture of a praying mantis and in alongside some flowers. And the praying mantis is just colored so it looks exactly like a petal on one of these orchids. So it's really hard to tell between the two of them. I'm going to circle that's the animal, right? So it's colored to match its environment perfectly. Second. Insects are usually really good at this because they're small. So they'll be hanging out on like trees and things like that a lot. This is a butterfly, picture of a butterfly. I'm going to give you a second to see if you can pick it out. But it looks exactly like a dead leaf. There's a butterfly. So butterflies aren't necessarily bright and colorful. They could be colored, brown to match in this case, a forest with a lot of that would have a lot of dead leaves on it. And then that helps it avoid predators, things that would want to eat it. Let's look at one more. This one's a little bit easier to see, but it's this bright green katydid right there. So it generally hangs out around more young green plants. So it's colored that way to blend in with its environment. So that's insects, but it also works for other animals as well. So this is an Arctic hare. So the cool thing about animals that live in really cold environments where it snows, and then the snow would thaw and melt, is that the animal's fur will change color along with whatever season it is. So this is winter, there's lots of snow. The Arctic hare is very white looking. But if you'll notice down by the feet of the hare right here, it's more brown. Once the snow melts and the ground goes back to being, like dirt colored, the fur will turn brown. Foxes do this as well. Lots of animals will do this. So they'll conform to the seasons. I should have named these better. I had these all organized and then it got scattered. Give it a second. All right, cool. So this is an octopus. Octopus or octopi are extremely neat because they can change their color at will. Just go on YouTube and put in octopus changing color, because it's really, really cool to watch as they go through the water. They'll attach themselves to rocks and things like that, and they'll change the color to blend in with the rocks that they're sitting on, and they can actually capture the texture of the rocks that they're on. So they can kind of sneak up on whatever fish, whatever prey they're going to be eating, and then blend in with the rocks. This is an octopus as well. Now here, it's not really blending in with anything at all, right? He's got these bright blue circle things and yellow things. So animals can change color, not just to blend in with their environment, but to stand out, right? I think Aristotle was credited as the first person to study octopus and note their changing color and kind of guess why they change color. So they can blend in with their environment, but they can also, when they're frightened or they want to startle something, they can get these wild color changing combinations that really make them stand out. Another thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about is counter shading. Let me wait for this picture to pop up. All right, so this is a seal. Oh, give it a second. There we go. So this is a seal. So you can see the brown blends in with those rocks really, really well. So it has brown on its back and a light tan color on its belly. I'll write it down here. Counter shade or counter shading. So lots of animals, deer, sharks, seal, even dogs and cats, the color on their back tends to be darker than the color on their belly. And the reason is it helps the animal blend in if you're looking above the animal, but also if you're looking below the animal. So if let's say you're a shark swimming through the ocean and your back is really dark and your belly is white. If you're a fish swimming above the shark looking down, you're going to be seeing the ocean floor, which is dark. So the top part of the shark is also dark because that blends in with the ocean floor. But if you're fish swimming beneath the shark and then you're now looking up at the shark, what you're not seeing the ocean floor, you're seeing the sun coming through the water, so it's very bright. So if the shark's like belly was dark as well, he would stand out. So instead, sharks, the seal, lots of other animals will have a lighter color belly because it helps blend them in if you're looking below the animal, and then also if you're looking above the animal. So 2 different shades. So that's used over and over and over again in the animal kingdom. And then engineers painted planes in World War II with counter shading. So the top of the plane would be a dark color, and then the belly of the plane will be a lighter color, and that helped it blend the planes in with the sky if you were looking above the plane or below the plane, both. So that's something that we borrowed from animals. And then one more, let me see if I can find, it's not on here. I'm just gonna look it up on Google real quick because I'm not seeing my zebra reference. So hawk as well, you see its belly is a much lighter color than the top of its wings. So if you're a bird looking up at the hawk, you might not see it because it's like blending in with the light of the sky and the sun and things like that. And if you're looking below, I mean, if you're flying above the hawk looking down, the hawk will blend in with the ground because its back is a very dark color. So zebras have a very peculiar camouflage strategy. Right, we're all familiar with zebra being black and white striped. They're not blending in with anything in their surroundings at all. What they're actually blending in with is each other. So zebras hang out in a herd. If you're a lion, like waiting in the grass, you're not going to attack an entire herd of zebras. Like that's not going to work. You want one zebra. So if they all have this strange concoction of pattern of black and white stripes and they're all standing together, it becomes really, really hard to distinguish one zebra from the rest of the zebras. So the lion may not even try to single out just one of them. There's sort of safety in numbers in that regard. Let me find. So we also borrowed this too for military craft. There was an artist in the military looking at zebras, and he thought, well, we could use that for our ships to help disguise our ships, not to make them blend in with their surrounding, but to make them confusing. Oops. So they called it Dazzle Camouflage. And it's really crazy. They painted warships, these stripes kind of based off of zebra stripes, to make the ship very confusing. Now you can't tell where the front of the ship is, where the side of the ship is. So it's not supposed to blend in with the water or anything like that. It's supposed to stand out and just be really confusing. So from a distance, can't really tell if you're like an enemy ship. You can't really tell where you're supposed to fire. So it's a couple of concepts that we borrowed from the animal kingdom. There we go. I'm going to stop sharing real quick. Can anybody think of any other reasons why animals might be colored the way they are? So we talked a lot about camouflage and blending in with the environment, but also blending in with a herd. Some animals are really, really bright. Let me see. Oops. some animals are really, really bright, right? Like they're not going to blend in with anything. An example I always think of is birds. This is like a color swatch thing I did of a bird of paradise, right? There's a lot going on here, a lot of different colors. This is a lovebird, you know, lots of bright colors. So they may not be trying to blend in with anything. Another good example is like a peacock, right? Like a peacock's not going to blend in with anything that's like bright, blue, translucent thing. Some birds do that just because it's very attractive. But some animals are also very bright color to warn other animals that they're poisonous. So this frog down here is a bright, bright orange red. And that's a warning to other animals that you shouldn't eat it because it's going to be poisonous. So those just some different reasons why animals are the way that they are. What I'm going to do for the rest of class, we can each pick a different animal and then just do a color study of that animal. And you can use whatever medium you want. Again, I used markers with these guys, and some were successful, some weren't because I couldn't get quite the exact color. So I think I'm going to do colored pencils for mine. But what you do with the color study is you're just focusing on the color shapes. So like I did eyes on some of these guys, but some of them I didn't, like the seal I didn't. But you can still tell what it is even without those details. And that's what I'm going for. So just following the color pattern. Yeah. Yeah, I mentioned in the talk, if you wear flamboyant colors, you know, some people might think you're poisonous if you wear flamboyant colors. I'm going to pull up the octopus because I think that would be really fun to do. I did more normal colors for my examples. I'll find my octopus reference. But you guys can use whatever reference you feel like doing. If you have a favorite animal, that might be good. If you're going to do like a fantasy creature that's a combination of a couple animals, you can do that as well. I always cite dragons because dragons are kind of a fantasy creature. But a lot of people will use like counter shading on their dragons. It makes them more realistic. They'll have the scales have like a rock-like texture, so they blend in a little more. And then that helps make their, even though it's a fantasy creature, it feels more real, feels more believable as a real creature. All right, so I'm not spending a lot of time figuring out the shapes, like getting the exact sketch of this. Make it nice and big though. No, George, I'm letting you guys pick what animal you want to do. Because I know everyone has different favorite animals. So the reference that I'm seeing, I'm doing like the wild, crazy. Where the octopus was like yellow and blue circles and things like that. Just because I think it would be fun to do a little less normal version of an octopus.
George is asking if they're drawing cartoony.
So we're really focusing on color right now. So I would pick like whatever cartoon animal that you're doing. I would pick as a reference, like if you're doing a cartoon like kangaroo or something like that, you know, I would just look up a kangaroo. And then we're not trying to get the shapes to be realistic necessarily. We're really just focusing on color. So pay attention to how whatever animal you pick how that animal is colored. And we're really going to focus on that. So you can, if it feels more cartoony to you, that's fine. We're not trying to make it look realistic. We're just trying to study what colors the animals have. Like I didn't draw all the little suction cups on my octopus or anything. I'm just putting down a layer of yellow. And then I'm just going to layer in the different colors that I see and where I see them. Find. So I see on their spots, they've got dark blue outlines and then they're light blue in the middle. I'm just going to pick out wherever I see a spot and do a dark blue. And so it's not going to be exact. I like doing the nice thing about the markers, if you guys are using markers, is you can do this really, really quickly. I had trouble finding the exact color that I wanted though. So I'm going to keep this. I need to try some with colored pencils for this one. But whatever you have is fine. For those of you who are like creating characters, part of doing character design is doing color tests. So you might take the same picture of a character and color it multiple times to see what kind of combination that you like. Oh, thanks, Evie. Those are my notes for another class project that is quite wacky here, if it's distracting. Yes, I have Angry Potato is a character that I have for another class. I have papers everywhere from different classes. So I think it's actually curved in more this way. Get my yellow back. The yellow more this way. I'm being very messy with this. Don't feel like you have to be neat. What are some of the animals that you picked to do? Toucan, nice. Yeah, very colorful. Yeah, birds and fish are interesting with their color varieties. They have, especially fish have a little more color in their environments. So they tend to be a lot more colorful. And then birds, especially like tropical birds, will tend to be really bright. But then you also get birds like hawks and things like that, where their goal is to blend in. Here. All right, now I need a very light blue. I'm just going to go through each one. I'm going to try to do this kind of fast. Blend it in a little bit. Around the eye, I'm actually seeing some pink, so I'm going to throw in some pink. Now, colors on animals can also be saturated in different places and unsaturated in other places, and that just means like how intense the color is. So around here in this octopus, it's a very, very intense yellow all through it, and then at the ends it gets kind of orangey. I'm going to try to capture that. Capture how they're kind of turning over on themselves like this. I'm trying to think of what else I could use this pattern for, because it's a really cool kind of design pattern over here. It's good to keep a library of references of things that you like. So if you like a certain animal's color scheme, you know, you might end up using it for a character that isn't that animal, but uses the same color scheme. Maybe if I had a character that's just a very like flamboyant personality and I need to have him wear like a really loud shirt, you could have a shirt with this pattern or something like that. Back here, they're looking more pink, so I'm going to do pink suction cups over here. And I'm not trying to make the suction cups look realistic. I'm just trying to give myself notes about where they are and what color they are. Energy. Now, another thing that I need to do when I'm most of the way through this color study is I also need to think about what the environment is, particularly if you have an animal that uses color to blend in to its environment. So it's like blending in camouflage. I'm not going to cover this whole page with like the environment colors, but I want to give at least a suggestion of it. So like I did here with this cheetah, the cheetah shapes were like, it's kind of blobby and like all over the place. But the spots on the cheetah help it blend in with the texture of the grass. So it's not only that the color matches like that yellowy dried grass, but it was just if the cheetah was just like this flat, light brown, it might stand out a little bit more because it's consistent, but because the cheetah has all these spots, it mimics the texture of the grass and helps it blend in more. So I want to give at least some reference to the environment this guy's in, and it's completely different in this case. This is the opposite case to the cheetah, where the environment of the octopus is completely different from the color that it has. That pencil is falling apart. So I'm just going to lightly put in some of this light turquoisey blue behind the octopus. So it will separate from the rest of that paper since that yellow is so light. And I'm being very messy. I'm not being very clean with this. Kind of matches this pattern. And then underneath on the ocean floor are very neutral colors. So browns and grays. There's some green for moths and things like that. Let's start with the brown. Try to separate this octopus from the rest of the environment. Here's a dark gray. And then just slowly build up and build up. There's some green over here. I'm going to switch over to Zoom real quick. Does anybody want to share what they've been working on so far?
Here's Evie.
Okay, so I can share what I've drawn and then what my reference image. So I'm drawing a budgie.
Oh, that's awesome. And can you share your reference?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that's adorable. It's like a parakeet looking thing. Yeah. It's like a very light yellow.
Yeah.
Did anybody else want to share what they've been working on? Or what animal they picked? More appreciation for the budgie. This also tests how well you do shapes as well. We're doing color, but the color has to have some kind of shape to it. Let's start the animal. This being kind of scribbly. This is water, so I'm just kind of loosely sketching in the water. If I wanted to pull this out even more, I could keep going with this floor texture.
Tater would like to share.
Awesome.
So I got 4 so far. I got a rosy
Nice.
maple moth, a toucan, a red panda, and some variety of sea slug.
Very cool. Yeah, yeah. So you got some very bright colored animals for those.
Resist at all costs.
Yeah.
Unless you want to.
Trying to find some other ones, but then I see the colorful ones and I'm like, ooh, I want to do that one.
It's easy to get drawn towards
Yeah.
the really colorful one.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, a lot of animals are, more neutral colored because their environments are more neutral colored and they're the don't want to be seen type of animal. And then you get some crazy stuff like that moth. Some moths are very neutral, but then that moth was like real bright. Another thing to look up if you guys want to see some really weird things is some animals are colorless. They have no colors at all. For some animals, they're what are called albino animals, so they'll be white. And this could really happen with any animals. You can see like there's albino penguins that are like white and tan. But you'll see some fish, colorless fish, they'll actually be completely see-through, like transparent. So you can see through the fish to their spine and their bones and then their organs. It's really, really wild. Give some darker spots to this ocean floor. Another way to contrast an animal from its environment is by contrasting a warmer color with a very cool color. So all colors have what's called a temperature. And it's easier to like explain when you see them right next to each other. So this yellow is very warm, right? You think of like a sunny yellow day. Very, very warm. And the water is a blue, so it's very cold. So you see them right next to each other, that yellow pops out even more than it did just on a blank white paper because there's that blue right next to it. It's another way to differentiate animals from their backgrounds. Yeah, I think albino animals are cute too. Or they're like when you can still see their patterning. It's like there's albino zebras that you can still see their stripes, but they're just very light. Kind of cool. All right. So for contrast, I'm gonna do the Camouflaged Octopus. So completely different color scheme, same animal. Neat thing about the octopus. So again, I'm just gonna draw a quick gesture from the photo. Where I see the octopus. I'm just going to lightly erase it just so it doesn't interfere with the colors I put on. So it's going to be opposite to the last one. This one's blending in with the rocks around it. So I'm not going to do as many bright colors. They're going to be more browns and reds and things like that. Lots of neutral colors and textures with this one. I'm just going to start with this neutral brown over most of the thing, and then build up the color differences where I see them. Scott, are we doing textures next week, or is it the week after?
It's next week.
It's next week. Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, so textures play a big role in camouflage as well. We'll talk about that next week. So I'm coloring kind of messy. I don't really care what direction I do. I'm not trying to be realistic. I'm just trying to get which color goes where. I'm drawing like an octopus-shaped rock. For this one. So every place I see this kind of brown, I'm just going to put it in and then move on to the next color. I actually see sticking out of it, there's a bunch of yellowy kind of spots poking out that kind of look like algae. I'm just going to put some random ones around the outside. So this one's going to be real messy looking. That's a texture with this guy. Yeah, so next week doing texture. It's going to be a similar thing, but we're going to go, instead of looking at the colors, I'm probably going to try to work black and white and then just work on the texture of the animals. But if you have an animal that you really, really like to draw and want to study more, just pull out some references and then you can have it ready to go for class next week. Because you guys don't have to draw the same animals that I draw. It's usually better if we I want to get a broad examples of different animals. So that everybody in the class can kind of see and then learn what makes animals different. Let me minimize this. So I'm exaggerating what I'm seeing in this example right here. There's these spike things that I think are like imitating moss on rocks. And there's a tiny bit of green in them and I'm just exaggerating it a little bit. So I'm taking a really bright green to pull out those little like spines. Yeah. Tater Tot, have you discovered any animal that you didn't know existed before? Just like going down the rabbit hole of random animals? Golden tiger? Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I've heard of white tigers. I don't think I've heard of a golden tiger. I'll look that up. Golden tiger. Oh, wow. Yeah, that is beautiful. One quick I want to pick up. Yeah, look how bright that is. Yeah, so the stripes aren't black, they're just like a slightly darker tan. Caramel tiger for sure. Yeah, so there can be all sorts of variations in animals. Has anybody else ever discovered a weird animal? I wish I used markers. I'm trying to cover a really, really wide space really quickly. I'm just using my whole arm to go over the whole page. I want to stay around, keep a focus around the octopus. Here. Come back up. Does anybody else want to share what they have so far?
You might share in a bit.
Cool. Yeah. So as you look at your photo more and more and more, you'll start to notice more. That's another reason why I say when you do a color study, you know, pull up a picture or just something that you can look at for reference. Even though if you know, kind of know in your head what the thing looks like, as you look at whatever your reference is more, you'll start to notice more things. So as I'm looking at this octopus, there's a lot more, especially around here, like the bumpy sections, there's a lot more yellow than I thought there was before. It's not just brown. It's just in little tiny bits. The way that octopuses change their color, they have cells called chromatophores that are all little circle shapes, and they can expand or contract whenever the octopus wants. So that spreads out the color, and so they can get different colors and textures really quickly off of these chromatophore cells. This is how the octopus changes color so fast. It's kind of like pixels on your printer where they just print out little dots. Except the octopus can change the size of the dots at will. It's pretty cool. Other species, I think, do the same thing. So like cuttlefish will do the same thing. Squid do the same thing. I need like a dark gray. Let's do this in violet as well. A lot of times when I'm shading, I'll do purple for the shading, give it a little bit of color. I think it makes it a little more interesting. And then if it's too much, I can go back over with a neutral color and it'll end up nice and dark. Then and it'll be a little more tied in, if that makes sense, than if I just done the dark gray to begin with. Okay, so I'm gonna start pulling out these little suction cups down here. So I put down a ton of yellow and I'm just going back over it with a more neutral color very lightly. So that yellow isn't as powerful. It's still there in little bits and pieces. I think there's some more over here too that I missed. I'm going to show you guys real quick back to back. Quite finished on this guy yet. I want to make the blue a lot bolder, a lot more of a bolder blue, and saturated so that it contrasts with this very neutral kind of colored octopus. But before we run out of time, I wanted to show you back to back two very, very different color schemes for the same animal. I'm going to pull my camera back a little bit. All right. So there's blending in and then not blending in. All right. Evie, were you ready to share? Oops, let me get Zoom back. Oh, it's so sweet looking. Nice. Can you think of a good color to put in the background to make the budgie stand out?
Maybe like a green.
Green, yeah, green would probably be good. Yeah, George seconds that, green. Very nice, thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Does anybody else want to share their color animal? Blend mine in a little bit more. Yeah, Taylor, go ahead and share your sketch.
Because I went down the rabbit hole, of course, I had to draw.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a really cool animal.
Yeah,
Thanks for sharing that. I love exciting new animal colorations or new crazy animals. All right. Well, as I was saying, next week we are going to do texture. So a little bit different. What I want to focus on is amount of different animal textures, because there's a lot, not just like fur and feathers, but patterns as well. A lot of animals have different patterns. And then we are going to try to put those on a circle and see if we can make that circle look like a 3D sphere with that texture on it. So that's what we're going to be doing next week. So, I'm just going to be using pencil and paper. But if you have any favorite animals or animals with a cool texture that you want to share, bring photos of those. Love to see those. And then it helps everyone learn more about different animals. How you doing, Laura? Laura's over trying to make everyone laugh. They Scott. That's awesome. Well, I hope you guys had a lot of fun this afternoon. If you haven't yet, we are completely donation based now. So if you are so inclined, and this is like a part of your week, something that you enjoy to do, just send us whatever donation you can, and we can keep this free for everybody for forever. Any other questions on what we're doing next week or anything else about our animals? Any last minute shares? All right, thanks, guys. Have a wonderful weekend. I will see you next Friday. Be sure to tune in for all the texture classes that we'll be doing throughout the week.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.